Okay, so hopefully this week we'll be able to wrap up the topic that we've been discussing for a couple of weeks already, which is the concept of the topic of Gegulim, of reincarnation. So I just want to focus on a little bit of a couple of the reasons that we talked about last time, why a person would be reincarnated, why a soul would be sent back down. So we went through a number of them, again, whether it's to accomplish a certain mitzvah that the person missed an opportunity in the first lifetime, or to fix a certain sin that they had to struggle with in the first lifetime, and so on. There was another reason that was mentioned by the Arizal, which is the following, and this is what we're going to talk about a little bit in greater detail. The Arizal taught that every single Jewish neshama, in order for it to be perfected, in order for it to be complete, must learn the entire Torah. It must learn the entire Torah. Means every single one of the 650 mitzvahs, it has to learn about its details, the halachic details, not just the halachas of it. The Arizal taught that all levels of Torah, every single soul has to learn. In other words, we know that according to the Torah, there's many different levels to understanding the mitzvahs and to understanding the Torah. There's pshat, the simple level, remez, drush, sod, all the way from the simple to the esoteric. And every single mitzvah exists on every single level. And it's incumbent upon every single soul for its perfection, its completion, to learn the entire Torah on all levels. So the Arizal taught that, again, this is what I mentioned last time, that it's almost impossible for one person in one lifetime to learn all of that. So therefore the Arizal taught that therefore it's necessary for a soul to come back numerous times in order to finish its job of learning the entire Torah. So the Arizal explained as follows, that the truth is there's a problem. If a person comes back down to earth to learn the entire Torah, as I said, and they're obviously not aware of what they've already learned. They don't know what's left to learn. So the question is, how is it possible for the soul to automatically just naturally learn what's missing from its course of Torah that it has to accomplish right now in this lifetime, if it's not aware of what it learned until now? Isn't it just going to keep on learning the same things over and over again? Isn't that a possibility? So the Arizal taught the following thing, that there's a famous Gemara. The Gemara says a rule, that when you want to know what part of Torah should you learn, what part of Torah should you learn? Should you focus on Chumash? Should you focus on Gemara, Halacha, Kabbalah, Medrash, what area of Torah should you personally focus on? So the Gemara tells you a rule. The Gemara says, Mashalibo chafetz. The rule is a person should learn the part of Torah that he feels himself mostly attracted to, mostly drawn to. There are some people that enjoy learning diktuk, learning the details of the Hebrew language. There are those that specifically enjoy learning Gemara. There are those that specifically love Navi. Every single person, says the Gemara, should learn what they're naturally drawn to. So on a very simple level, the reason for that Gemara, the explanation of that Gemara is that whatever you naturally are more inclined to like is what you'll accomplish in more. So for example, if a person does not like Medrash, then if he's forced to learn Medrash all day long, he's not going to, because he's not going to enjoy it, he's not going to invest as much time and energy as he should in learning. That's on a simple level. But the Arizal taught, based on this whole teaching of reincarnation, that the meaning of that Gemara is as follows: that even though it's true that every one of us doesn't know what specific, intellectually speaking, we don't know what part of Torah we're here to learn, to fill the missing pieces in our collective lives. However, said the Arizal, we don't know that consciously, but what Hashem does is He plants within the Jewish person a natural inclination to that portion of Torah that he's supposed to learn in this lifetime. So, for example, if in a person's lifetime, in a person's, let's say, previous lifetime, they learned all of Torah, except for Navi. They whatever reason, the previous lifetimes, they never focused on Navi. So what Hashem is going to do is he's going to bring the soul back down to earth, and He's going to implant in that person a very strong attraction and desire to learn Navi. And that's what He's going to do. And it's incumbent upon the person to recognize this and to realize that it's something real, and to follow his instincts, where his heart desires, and to learn that. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that if a person specifically likes Navi, for example, it means he doesn't have to learn any halacha. Obviously, that's not true, because just in order to function as a frum person in the world, you have to learn basic halachas. You have to know how to daven, you have to know how to keep Shabbos. You have to know to eat kosher and so on. So there are certain basics that every Jew has to know in order to simply survive. But as far as a focus, as far as focusing your energy in learning, what area of Torah should you specifically focus on? So the Gemara says, whatever your heart desires. And said that reason because that's the telltale sign of what portion of Torah you're supposed to learn in this lifetime. So there's a story behind this, in fact, that the Arizal, that Rav Chaim Vital, the great student of the Arizal, was once complaining to the Ari, saying that he feels bad about himself, that he always feels himself drawn to learn Kabbalah and not so much halacha. Now, even though it's true, Rav Chaim Vital was an expert in halacha. In fact, he was the chief rabbi of Syria, so there's no question that he knew halacha. You can't be, it's not possible. He definitely learned halacha, and he knew it very, very well. But as far as a motivation in life, when he woke up in the morning, he wasn't feeling an urge and a desire to learn halacha. It was all Kabbalah about him. That's where his heart was pulling him, and he was complaining to the Rizal that he felt bad about that. He sees other friends of his that enjoy Gemara and halacha so much, and they find unbelievable satisfaction in that, and he doesn't feel it. So he thought that it was something missing in himself. So the Rizal told him that's completely a mistake. It's not something that's missing in you. It's the opposite. The Rizal said that in one of your previous lifetimes, you were the great Maggid Mishnah. The Maggid Mishnah was one of the great commentaries on the Rambam, and in that lifetime, you learned all of halacha properly. And therefore said that Rizal, but what was missing is Kabbalah, because the Maggid Mishnah was not a Kabbalist, he was not a Makubal, he was not involved in Kabbalah at all. And therefore Hashem sent your soul back down in this lifetime to specifically focus on Kabbalah, and that's why you're born with a natural inclination towards Kabbalah. So this really opens up a whole Indian that every adult thinking person has to really be in touch with, is what part of Torah speaks to him. And obviously this doesn't mean that children in school, should be left in an unorganized way. Kids should learn whatever it is they personally enjoy. But at some point in life, a person has to acknowledge what his heart desires. And if he's old enough and he's wise enough and he speaks to the right people, he should be guided in that way, because it's very sad and unfortunate if a person is drawn in a certain area of Torah and he's being forced, whatever outside pressures, to focus on an area of Torah that does not speak to him. So not only will it be counterproductive practically, that he's not going to invest as much energy and time into it because he's not enjoying it, but on a much deeper level, he could be missing the purpose of why he's here. Every single Jew has to learn all of Torah. Now, the Rizal also taught that not only is it true that every Jew has to learn all of Torah, but there are certain chidushim, there are certain ideas, there are certain new insights in Torah that every single Jewish soul also has to reveal. So in other words, if a person is specifically drawn to Navi, it's not just that he has to learn through Navi. Rather, the Rizal taught that there could be certain new ideas, certain new insights in Navi that he specifically is meant to reveal. Now, the Rizal taught, and it's an amazing thing, that every single soul has chidushim. There are certain insights in Torah on any level, and all different levels, and every different area of Torah that each soul has to reveal. And from the beginning of time, every soul was created with the potential to create and to reveal certain ideas, certain new insights in learning, again, each on his level, and that's part of their job. So it's not just a question of amassing as much knowledge as one can, but it's also incumbent upon every single soul to try to create, try to be creative in learning. Again, obviously within a framework. It's not within our ability to come up with new halachas, but as far as a new insight, looking at things in a different way, learning Torah from your own personal perspective, that creates certain insights, and that's a necessary component for the perfection of each and every neshama. Now, there's a sefer, by the way, it's called Chesed Lavram. This was a sefer written by the Chida's grandfather, Reb Chaim Yosef David Azulai, one of the great halachic poskim and mukubalim of all time. His grandfather wrote a sefer called Chesed Lavram. In that sefer, he talks about this topic a lot, this idea that every soul has its portion of insights of Torah that it has to reveal. Now, the Chesed Lavram explained that it's an amazing thing. He said that even in heaven, even in Shemayim, in the Yeshiva Shlomayel, in the heavenly Yeshiva, where all the great tzaddikim and malachim are learning and studying Torah on the deepest of levels, said the Chesed Lavram that these insights, these specific insights of Torah, are not revealed even to the greatest tzaddikim in heaven until you down here come up with them. Whether you publish them or not, it doesn't make a difference. If the insight that you are supposed to reveal if it comes to your mind, then and only then is it taught in the heavenly yeshiva. Until that time, it's completely unknown to even the greatest of tzaddikim. The Chesed Avram clarified. He said there was only one person that was the exception to this. There was only one person that was privy, that was aware of all chidushim, all novel ideas that would ever be said, even before they were revealed by the people that were supposed to reveal them, and that was Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one unique figure that everything that was ever going to be learned was revealed to him. But ever since Moshe Rabbeinu, no tzaddik is aware, even if a tzaddik is an expert in a certain field of Torah, there are certain insights that are unaware to that tzaddik until you personally reveal them. And this is, we have many stories like this, where there are certain tzaddikim where they were struggling with a certain area of learning, and then all of a sudden, they've been struggling for a week, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden it just pops into their mind the clarification of the problem. And why did that happen? So many stories like this, we have this specifically from Arizal and Baal Shem Tov, we have this very often, that the explanation that was given to them by the greatest of tzaddik and by the Arizal is the fact that this specific question that you were grappling with was dependent on a certain novel idea that had to be revealed that was not yet revealed, and the whole week you were struggling with it, and then at one point, some person on the other end of the planet was studying his portion of Torah, came up with his insight, and then that allowed your soul to be privy to that idea as well, and that helped unlock whatever question you were having in your learning. So it's very important, as I said, for each person to learn that area that speaks to them and to try to be inventive. Again, within a framework, within a certain sense of seriousness and maturity. Obviously, you have to know. That person has to be well educated to figure out how to be creative in learning. But when a person knows how to do it, each one on his level, it's a very important thing to be creative, 100%, and it's necessary for the completion of one's neshama. This is, by the way, also connected to the idea that we have in Chazal that every single baby in the womb is being taught Torah by a malach, and then when the baby leaves the womb, when it's born, it's slapped by the malach and it forgets its Torah. What Torah was it being taught? So, according to the Arizal, what was being taught to every single child in the womb was not just a lot of information. What was being shown, what was being taught to the baby in the womb was its specific portion of Torah that it is meant to accomplish and to learn in this lifetime, and it was shown its chidushim, its novel ideas that it was supposed to reveal in its lifetime. Then the knowledge, the conscious knowledge of this information is taken away, and it's now the job of the person to sort of relearn it. And the reason why it was originally taught in the baby inside is to give some sort of subconscious, connection to that knowledge. And when the person is introduced, and the person comes in contact with that portion of Torah that he learned inside the baby's womb, subconsciously there's a deep connection that's made between him and that knowledge, and that will create that natural inclination, that drive to learn that subject. So it's a very, very important thing to always, again, follow your instincts when it comes to learning. Again, not as far as creating halacha and so on. Obviously, a person has to know his limitations and knowledge. But as far as a devotion of what area of Torah to devote himself to, it is a very important thing to follow one's natural desires and natural instincts. Again, like I said, it doesn't take away from the basics that we all have to learn just in order to function and to be people on a level to be 100% religious and so on. There are certain basic things every Jew has to learn, but I'm talking about beyond the basics, beyond the basic diet of a Jewish man, of a Jewish person, beyond that basic requirement. As far as focusing one's energies, it's very important to listen to one's instincts. That's as far as that is concerned. There was another issue another reason why reincarnation would take place, and I mentioned this last time, which is to find one's shidduch. Now this is a very, very, very big discussion by the Mekubalim, and it's a little bit beyond the scope of what we can talk about in the context of this year, but just a little bit. There is a concept, and it's already referenced in the Gemara, even though it's not explicit. There is a concept that every single neshama that's created is really consistent of two halves. There's the male half of it and the female half of it. These two half of souls, when they are born, they could each be born to different families and so on. There's the baby boy and there's a baby girl. These two neshamas, these two souls, since they are both really halves of one big soul, they are considered to be a true zivik. So this little baby boy that's born right now, whatever, so his other half of his soul, his true bazivik, his true shidduch, could be somewhere on the other end of the earth, obviously. So there are two different types of marriages. This is what the ultimate Kalam talk about, and it's rooted in Gemaras and so on. That on the one hand, it's possible, and it's a very, very great thing if a person is able to marry his true zivik, his true bas zivik, his true ben zivik. It's an unbelievable thing, and the Arizal taught every neshama must experience that at least once. So the Arizal taught, for example, that there could be the only reason for a person to be brought back down into a new lifetime is just to marry his true zivik. What's the other option? If you're not marrying your true zivik, who are you marrying? So the Arizal taught that there's another option. The other option is that even if a person is not marrying his true zivik, the other half of his neshama, there could be a different neshama. It's not the same. It's not the other half of you per se, but it's a different neshama, a female neshama, or a male for a woman, that is your greatest match as far as your meisim, as far as your actions, as far as what you deserve, your personal inclinations, and so on. Without being your literal second half, it's as close as possible. It's as close as possible. Now, the Rizal taught that this chas v'shalom, don't think for a second, said the Rizal, that if a person doesn't marry his true other half, the marriage is not going to be a happy one, and they won't have hatzlacha, they won't have good children, and so on. Chas v'shalom. Said the Rizal, there's really no way for us in this lifetime to feel whether we're marrying our bazivik or not, because even if it's not our true match, not the other half, it still could be an unbelievably beautiful marriage. And the opposite is also true. A person can marry his match, but if they could be miserable people. They could cause a very strong rift and shalom bayis, despite the fact that they're two halves of the same soul. So, and for example, I don't want to go into this too much, but we do have, the Rizal did teach, there are certain great tzaddikim in our history that did not marry their bazivik. They did not marry the other half. They married people that were as closely similar to their souls as possible without being the second half. And that was not because of anything missing in them. That was just what Hashem desired, what Hashem wanted. This is connected, by the way, to some difficulty that people have with shidduchim. I'll just mention one thing real quickly, because I don't want to get into this too much, but the Rizal did teach that, generally speaking, again, all these things are exceptions to all rules, but the Rizal did teach that, generally speaking, if a person is marrying his second half, his other half, his true bazivik, for the first time, generally speaking, that shidduch will go smooth. The shidduch will go smoothly. He won't have such a difficult time. However, if he's marrying his true half for the umpteenth time already, and he's married her in a previous life, and they were both sent back down for other reasons, and they happen to both be here, and they are marrying each other, so such a shidduch very often will come with difficulties, not necessarily fighting, but it might take years. It might take a long time to find that true other half. But if it's the first time, for whatever reason, the Rizal taught it'll happen more quickly and more smoothly. So I personally just feel that this is good chizuk for people that have a difficulty with shidduchim. In our generation, it seems to be a very difficult inyan. That it's important to remember that all the difficulties a person has with shidduchim, we're talking about things that are standing in the highest place of reality. These are very, very deep in yanim, and it's necessary. And every struggle a person has with a shidduch, to make a shidduch or to find his shidduch, it's big things. It's very, very big things. When a shidduch does happen, it's an unbelievable simcha on all levels. So a person should not think that, and by the way, it's also an important thing to remember, there is a Rashi. Rashi says in the Gemara that it's not possible to mess this up also. It's not possible. If a person is supposed to marry someone, it's going to happen. It's just a question of breaking through the barriers that are in the way. But it's going to happen. The person has to chazik himself with that. But it's an important thing. So the Rizal taught that every soul has to experience that connection at least once. That, again, and it doesn't mean that you're emotionally going to be more attached to this person necessarily, but it means on a soul level, that union is a very important one for the completion and the perfection of that soul. That's an important thing to remember. I'm just seeing the question that Rashi, it's a Gemara in Ma'ikatan. The Gemara that talks about this whole topic, even though not explicitly, it's a Gemara in Ma'ikatan and it's a Gemara in the beginning of Sota. So over there, Rashi talks about this, and Rashi explains that the only thing that could possibly happen is if a person passes away for whatever reason is killed, that's one thing that could mess up shidduchim. But just to make a mistake, just to marry the wrong person, it's not going to happen. And again, the Arizal also explained that the concept of a marriage that dissolves, unfortunately, through divorce, it doesn't mean that there were never truly a shidduch either. There is such a thing that a person was destined to marry his shidduch, to marry a ben zivig, a bas zivig, for a certain period of time. And there are certain souls that have to be created, that have to be brought into reality during that time period. And when the time period is over, for whatever the reason, for reasons that are beyond our understanding most of the time, so he has to now find another shidduch. This is why there is such a thing, a person marrying multiple women, again, back in the day at the same time. Nowadays, staggered. If a person, chas v'shalom, loses a wife, gets divorced, and so on, so you remarry, every single one of those women, every single one of those men, in the other case where a woman remarries, that's a strong connection, and it's not a random thing. So these souls are all connected. They're all connected. Now, by the way, this whole concept of reincarnation does throw a wrench when it comes to Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead, right? Because if you think about it, how does the resurrection work? If it's the same soul coming back down 10 times, so who's coming back to life? Is it Ruvain Goldstein, or is it Daniel Farber? You know what I mean? Like, it's the same soul. One lived 100 years ago, one lives now. Which one is coming back? So the Rizal talked about this, and the Rizal explained that they're all going to be there. Tchias HaMesim is for every reincarnation, they are all going to come back to life. Now, how is that possible if it's the same soul? So the truth is, this is just something I'll say quickly. The Arizal did explain that when we're talking about the same soul coming back down, it's not as simple as that. The soul is a very complex organism with an infinite amount of parts. So the Arizal taught that it is possible to have a soul that's mix and match. In other words, you can have one person, one consciousness called Ruvain Goldstein, who this consciousness, this soul, is really a combination of many, many other people. And that combination creates this new consciousness called Ruvain. Just like when it comes to food, you could have in front of you 10 basic ingredients, and you could create from that 1,000 dishes based on the combinations. It's the same thing when it comes to a soul. I mean, obviously on a much, much different level. But every single combination of all these different souls creates a new entity, and each entity has its own existence. The Rizal did say, though, however, that when Tchias HaMesim takes place and these souls will come back to life, all the reincarnated souls, they will have a certain kinship. They will have a certain connection to each other on a very, very deep level. Like brothers feel connected, these people will feel connected to each other on a very, very deep level because they're all coming from one basic soul that's being reconstituted in so many different ways. But there will be a strong connection with these people. One last thing I wanted to say, and then we'll open up for questions, is that one of the aspects of Gulgulim, of reincarnation, is also to even out relationships. In other words, besides these basic reasons that we've talked about of why a soul would come back, while the soul is there, it will, generally speaking, even out a relationship that it had in a previous life. So, for example, in one lifetime, Yaakov is the father of Ruvain, and Yaakov is giving to Ruvain constantly, and Ruvain is receiving from Yaakov. In the next lifetime, to even out that relationship, very often it will be that Ruvain will be the father of Yaakov. And now Yaakov will be receiving and Ruvain will be giving to even out the playing field. This affects all sorts of things. Even, it's just one cute thing on the side there. Rizal taught that very often you have in a marriage where the wife is the more dominant one. It happens that, that's the way it works. And specifically nowadays, I think with American society, for sure, that's the way it is. So you think, okay, it's a nothing thing, whatever, it's a cultural thing. The Rizal taught it's not so simple. The Rizal said very often because the roots of these souls are going back to the generation of the desert. And in the generation of the desert, the men were the ones that sinned with the golden calf, and the women did not. So therefore, in the next lifetime, when they come back into the world, the women in that relationship have more of a position of power because on some deep subconscious level, they know that they're more righteous than their husbands. So again, like I said, the point of all of this is to reinforce within us faith that every single aspect of our lives is full of meaning. And it has to give us chizuk. Nothing is simple and nothing is meaningless. Everything is full of depth and full of meaning. And this has to give us chizuk in our avodas Hashem, and it has to reinforce our faith that Hashem is running the world in a way that He knows best. Okay, so now I guess we'll open up for questions. I know it's late.
I unmuted everybody. If anybody has any questions, you can go ahead. Oh, we had one that was written in, which is, where is that Rashi?
Yeah. So I saw that. So it's in like I said, it's in the beginning of Sota. It's right in the beginning of Sota, and it's also in my cotton. The daf of my cotton, I think it's going to be around daf Yud. I don't remember 100%, but if you see in the beginning of Sota, they'll reference it where it is in my cotton too.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I see a question over here. Are we still going to spend more time on Ishtadlos? Okay, I guess we'll see. The truth is, if anyone has more ideas for topics, then please, you should send an email to Dovi, whatever, and we'll try to cover everything everyone wants to talk about. Okay.
Okay.
Shukayach.
Shukayach, everyone. Thank you.